Hi, I'm Pam. Welcome back to my channel. It's an unseasonably warm winter day here in northern Nevada, which means a storm front is coming in. The wind is just blowing like crazy. It's a wonderful day to stay inside and do some baking. A friend of mine recently posted on Facebook about a blueberry buckle recipe, and it made me think of my paternal grandmother, Grandma M, and she used to make a version of blueberry buckle cake, but she called it hucklebuckle cake. And I don't have her recipe, unfortunately, but I do have a vintage recipe from my 1961 Betty Crocker New Picture cookbook. And so that's what I'm going to use today. This is a great cookbook. Back, of course, in 1961, most middle-class women were still stay-at-home moms doing a lot of cooking, a lot of baking, just caring for the family. And this cookbook has a lot of great tips and tricks in it when it comes to cooking and entertaining. But what I really find entertaining in this particular cookbook is its hints for the homemaker, hints on planning ahead for your workload, organizing your workload, combining jobs. But I love this bit, refresh your spirits. Every morning before breakfast, comb hair, apply makeup, and a dash of cologne. Does wonders for your morale and your families too. Think pleasant thoughts while working, and a chore will become a labor of love. Have a hobby. Garden, paint pictures, look through magazines for home planning ideas, read a good book, or attend club meetings. Be interested, and you'll always be interesting. If you have a spare moment, sit down, close your eyes, and just relax. Now, I suppose we could make fun of this because it was aimed at the stay-at-home housewife and mother, but really, this sort of thing actually can apply to today, even for anyone really, for the busy career person, the mom who may be working but also be married and raising a family at the same time. It is important to get up and get dressed and not slop around in your pajamas all day. I go to Walmart and I see people shopping in their pajamas and slippers, and I find that amazing as always. Finding a hobby, reading a good book, all of these are important because, as it says, if you are interested, you will be interesting. So broaden your horizons and become the best person that you can be. So it's a little corny, but I think still applicable in today's modern world. So let's go ahead and let's get baking. The first step, of course, is to butter and flour a 9x9 square pan. This particular baking dish came to me from my good friends at Gray Barn Antiques in Andover, New Jersey. Just going to take a little butter here and spread it in the pan all around. You can use butter, you can use shortening, you could use lard, I suppose, if that's what you prefer. Anything that's got fat in it. And just a little bit of flour. And just bang that around. Toss the excess into the sink or the garbage. Now I'll set that aside. Next, I'm going to preheat my oven to 375 degrees. This particular recipe is a version of what's called prize coffee cake. It's in the quick breads section of the cookbook. And this particular prize coffee cake has a number of different versions: cinnamon coffee cake, streusel filled, holiday coffee cake, pineapple, marmalade, orange, quick apple, and what we're making today, the blueberry buckle. So into my large bowl goes 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of shortening, and 1 egg. Mix that all thoroughly. I like to use wooden spoons a lot. I just like how they handle. They're not expensive. And they last a long time. My mother always had wooden spoons around. If we kids were misbehaving, we'd get threatened to get a spanking with the wooden spoon. I remember my younger sister would take the spoons and hide them. And my mother would laugh and say, "They're cheap, I can buy more." She found the stash once. All right, so there's our sugar, shortening, and egg mixture. Now we're adding a 1/4 cup of milk. I find that whenever I'm creating a recipe that calls for milk, I always have to run out and buy it, because I'm not a big milk drinker, so. We're going to set this aside. Now we're going to combine our dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I usually have the pink Himalayan salt on hand, but whatever type of salt you have available. Take another wooden spoon and blend my dry ingredients. The baking soda, of course, is the leavening that will make this rise. Now we're simply going to add our dry ingredients to the wet. I'm gonna do it in a couple of different sections here. Otherwise, the flour tends to fly all over the place. I love the idea of making this blueberry buckle, or hucklebuckle as my grandmother used to call it. I have some great memories of doing things with both of my grandmothers. They both enjoyed baking and sewing. My own mother was not much of a baker, but she loved gardening. I did not inherit her green thumb. My younger sister got that. But I enjoyed, we enjoyed doing things with our grandmothers. And it's one of the nice things about grandmas. They do things with their grandkids that maybe they didn't have time to do with their own children as they were growing up, because they were too busy doing everything else. And so time spent with grandchildren is always very special. These green bowls I just love. They're not vintage, but they're vintage inspired. They were a Christmas gift from a friend a couple of years ago. They resemble jadeite. But what's nice about these is that I'm not afraid to put them in the dishwasher. Okay. That batter is thickening up nicely. If I see any big lumps of shortening, I'm gonna try to squash them. I know shortening is getting a bad rap these days. Anything that's hydrogenated, but I feel if you don't overindulge, it's not the worst thing in the world. And it's also important to make sure that it doesn't go rancid. This is a new can, so you can see it's nice and white. If it starts to turn yellow, chuck it. And last but not least, I'm going to fold in my 2 cups of blueberries. The recipe says well drained, so I presume that they are expecting that the folks at home might be using canned blueberries, but these are fresh. But I'm going to just gently fold them in. They're going to pop in the oven anyway as it bakes. My mother passed away last summer, and at her memorial celebration, my oldest recalled how on birthdays Grandma would take each of the grandkids out, just the birthday kid, and take them out to Applebee's and a movie. And just how special that time was. So that's why doing things like this and making me think of my own grandmother, it makes me think of my mom and just all the great things, all the great memories. Okay, so this batter is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and spread it into my pan. It's pretty stiff. A couple of the blueberries have already gotten squashed, but that's okay. I'm gonna use this Merry Christmas rubber spatula to get out the last. Don't think I'm gonna lick the spoon. I'm not much of a dough eater. Like cookie dough, that sort of thing. All right, I'm gonna set this aside for just a few minutes while we make our topping that's going to go on top of the blueberry buckle. A half a cup of sugar, 1/3 of a cup of flour, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, using this because it's right here. Just gonna give this a quick little stir. And 1/4 of a cup, which is half a stick of butter, softened butter. Don't put it in the microwave. Just let it sit out on your countertop and let it get set. It just says to mix together, so just gonna kind of cut it here with the spoon. I prefer to use salted butter. That's my preference, but if you're worried about your salt content, you can use unsalted. You know, since it didn't quite tell me exactly how to do this, it just said mix it together. I'm kind of making it up as I go along. That spoon business was not working out, so I'm gonna do it kind of like when I'm making a pie crust. I'm just gonna use the knives to chop up the butter into small bits. There, that seems to be working better. A pastry blender would work too, and I have one, I'm not sure where it is right now, so the knives work just as well. Learning together. There. I think that looks pretty good. Just give it another little stir here so that it's all blended together as best as I can get it. Awesome. I'm just going to sprinkle it on top of the blueberry buckle batter. I'll set the timer for 45 minutes, check it, and if it's not quite done, I'll let it go for another 5. All right, let's see if it's done. It's nice and browned on the top. I'm going to poke a toothpick in. Try not to poke it into a blueberry. All right, that came out clean. Just some crumbs on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of the oven, and we're gonna let it cool before cutting into it. As you can see, the blueberry buckle has cooled. I've cut it into 9 pieces, and now I'm going to take a sample. Ooh. Has a really nice crumb, lots of blueberries. As you can see, there are plenty of blueberries in this piece. I'm ready to take a taste. I can smell the cinnamon. It smells amazing. The top has a slight crunch to it. Really, really good. The cinnamon is just right. It's not overpowering. Complements the blueberry, and the cake itself is rather mild, and that's what really allows the blueberry and the streusel topping to shine. Looking forward to sharing this with my partner. He doesn't know I was baking today. He'll be excited when he comes back from work. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join me today. I'll put the recipe down in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.